Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham right here on Talk TV. Much to discuss this morning. We haven't even got to what the IMF have come out with this morning, where they basically had a go at Kwasi Kwarteng, not because he's superficially black, but because he's superficially the Chancellor, and apparently hasn't done a very good job in his budget. We shall see whether that turns out to be correct. William Clouston is here in this hour. He's a bit worried about the economy. He's going to tell us why. I'm not so worried about the economy as a lot of other people are, because I know, as I said yesterday, that an awful lot, and I said it the day before as well, an awful lot of the opportunism that is going on right now in the money markets is being caused by what you might describe as overzealous traders, people who are making a fortune, because that's what they do, out of buying and selling currency. I don't know what the pound is trading at the moment. I'm going to ask for some information on that. But yesterday, the high, I think, was 108. It will probably remain there. I don't think it's going to go below 1. I think it's still knocking around about 108. So we will continue to keep an eye on it. But the doom and gloomsters who are out there telling you that the pound is worthless, nobody wants to invest in Britain, that's not true. More worrying, though, is the property situation. I think that is a genuine concern, particularly when the banks came out yesterday and said that they wouldn't lend to anybody. It's literally their only job. We'll also talk some more about Sussex Police. We'll also talk some more, of course, about Rupert Hook. But let's kick things off in this hour with some questions about the state of our economy. William Clouston is here from the SDP. William, nice to see you.
Great to be back.
You said you're worried about the economy. Tell us why.
Well, this hasn't happened overnight, Mike. We've had a debt-based, consumption-based economy for about 20 or 30 years. We haven't actually had a positive balance in the trade of goods since 1985. No government has balanced its books for 20 years. We've got debt everywhere. We've got debt in the household sector, we've got debt in the government sector, obviously, and the corporate sector. And the idea that you can solve this debt-based model by yet more debt, I think is distinctly sort of Latin American. And I would say I'm very concerned about Kwasi Kwarteng. I think...
Do you think he's not up to the job?
I think I worry. I think a man that thinks he can suddenly get 2.5% trend rate growth if he just cuts tax worries me. I'm not sure you're fit to be Chancellor if you think that. The debt stock is so big, the drag anchor of that debt is so big in the economy. I'd love it to happen. It won't happen. Nor do they talk about the sources of growth. They never say apparently it's going to happen by magic. Yeah. Obviously, you'll get more debt-based consumption. If you cut tax, you'll get more spending, but I'm worried that'll suck in imports, so it'll make the balance payment even worse. I don't see any serious thinking from this government. I think a lot of Truss's views on economics are sort of faith-based, almost childlike. So I'm worried, Mike, that you get Latin American policies, you get Latin American results.
I mean, we did have with Boris Johnson, did we not, a sort of a hit and hope style of leadership where he would say, that's fine, let's get Brexit done. What about Northern Ireland? Oh, that'll sort itself out later. It was that kind of approach, wasn't it? And we still haven't sorted out Northern Ireland, and we still haven't really sorted out Brexit, and we still haven't really sorted out the European Court of Human Rights, and we still haven't really sorted out the French fishing situation. So, I think the Tories have been characterised lately by an awful lot of that sort of hit and hope. Let's just not talk about that. It will sort itself out. And sometimes, actually, it does. I mean, you could argue that if, in fact, Kwasi Kwarteng's gamble, which is what everybody's describing it as, pays off, and somehow the economy does recover, which might be nothing to do with his policies at all, he will get the credit for it.
Well, it's not going to happen. I mean, I'd love it to happen. It's not going to happen.
Are you sure?
I'm sure, yeah. He has no idea where the source of this growth is coming from. They haven't had an industrial policy for years. How can anyone make anything with energy prices as they are? They should have built some nuclear power. A lot of this is retrospective. I mean, we've had bad policy for a long time, and I'm worried that we just get to the end of the road here, and another debt splurge to solve the debt problem isn't going to do it. So I don't think there's any fiscal rectitude from this government. It is very much, as you say, it's quite Johnsonian. It's very hit and hope. You mentioned the migration crisis. The Tories, Ed West did an interesting piece, on this recently. You just had to get that right. A lot of people that voted to get out of the European Union wanted a border that actually worked. They've totally failed to do that. I said at the time, when the Rwanda policy came out, I'm going to get be seen as a bit of a cynic in this. When it came out, I said it was just a publicity stunt. It was obvious it was a publicity stunt because they left all the human rights lawyers with the means to undermine it. They weren't serious. And the public are looking around.
And only this week we've heard that they've given up now on deporting, if you like, or reporting Albanian criminals who are coming here, but basically because they've given up because there's too many lawyers fighting them.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, well, surely if you've got a policy that you want to see succeed, you fight the lawyers and you make sure that the lawyers can't get to a certain point by somehow, you know, I don't know, copper plating the deal.
Well, Mike, you've got an 80-seat majority. You can do emergency. I think this is an emergency.
I heard somebody calling it a 71-seat majority today. Is that right? Has it gone down by 9?
It's gone down by a couple because of the by-elections, but they've still got a massive majority. It proves that they're not serious people. You know, people elected them to have a proper border, and they're not capable. I think a lot of this is because ultimately they don't want to. Listen, during the pandemic, they brought in emergency legislation. They did a lot of things that a lot of people didn't want because they wanted to. On something like the Channel crisis, they just don't want to solve it. There is a way of solving it. The SDP's got a policy out.
Even if I accepted that that was true, and I'm not saying I do, I don't say I don't either, why would they not want it to stop? Is it financial? Are they so sort of tried and trusted with people like Serco that they want to let Serco make a fortune over it?
Some people say that. I don't think it's corruption of that kind. I think it's more incompetence and there's lack of will. I think a lot of these people...
No, but hang on.
They don't want to.
No, but you said they don't want to. That's different from can't.
No, they can, but they don't want to. I think they don't want to because they're not prepared to face up to the political reality. There's too many metropolitan liberals in the party. The party's not a conservative party. I think Johnson didn't want to do it because he is a liberal. He's an open border liberal. He was talking about mass amnesties. He didn't want to go to middle-class tea parties and dinner parties in London and say, I've actually got out of this 51 convention. You cannot. One day, Mike, a Western state is going to pull out of these conventions and get control of its borders. And a lot of other people are going to say, hip, hip, hooray.
Well, look what Sweden are doing, right? Sweden are now deporting people en masse. Forget the European Court of Human Rights, which they also presumably are subjected to. They don't care. Denmark has done the same. They've actually paid them to go home, right? They've actually sent people to Syria, right? The Italians, I'm sure, will do the same as soon as the new government gets in, because they are at the front end of it, because one of the first points of landing for people from North Africa is Italy, right?
Lampedusa,
So lots of Italians and lots of Swedes, lots of Danes, and a growing number, I suspect, of Spain and Spanish people will want to do the same. So why the heck are we operating differently?
Well, the Polish did the same. I mean, when they had the cynical... They put the fence up because they actually wanted to have a border. You get the same reaction from Hungary. No, I think it's a lack of will. It's not because they can't do it, Mike. I mean, it's not as if we can't do it. We don't have any government, any party. I mean, you think the Tories are bad on this? Labour and the Lib Dems would be even worse.
Of course they would.
It's a tragedy. The cost to this, to the country of getting this wrong is huge. You can't ultimately put it down to anything other than they're not serious about it. They don't want to do it. They're going to get run out of office, the Tories. They're in
I actually said the other night, if they can solve the migrant crisis, they're going to get re-elected. And that would be a turning point for them. But if they don't, you're absolutely right.
No, that's a reasonable view. I probably agree with you, actually. I think they could probably save it, but I don't see any hint of that happening.
No, I don't. And as far as the the housing market goes, because that's the immediate problem for a lot of people. I mean, I think people talk about the pound going down and, you know, bond prices plummeting. Nobody really understands any of that because that's all sort of, you know, rocket science stuff in the city. But when somebody gets told your mortgage is going up 300 quid a month, from 400 to 700, you know, that is a massive problem.
I'll try and... It is sort of economics, macroeconomics is seen as rocket science, but it's actually... I'll try and explain it. We're in a bind because we've got inflation at 10%. The bank, the MPC of the bank have got to try and deal with that. They have an independent mandate to deal with it. If they're going to pull inflation back down, they've got to have interest rates up. And that's the same with the pound. The pound's under pressure, so there'll be an implication. Put the bank rate up, and you'll strengthen the pound. So that's one thing. But the problem is macroeconomically, the demand side of the economy will collapse. If you put up interest rates to 6%, imagine the mortgage market. Imagine going for a mortgage. Imagine the people that are on reviews.
Well, I don't have to imagine it because I was here last time around.
Yeah, no, and we're old enough to see it. Yeah, and that's the trouble. So you imagine mortgages at 6%. That is as big a hit to household budgets as this energy crisis. People can't afford it.
I've also seen it from the other side when I was in New York City and I bought a house in 1989. Cost me $249,000. First house I'd ever bought. Very proud of myself. My lawyer was like, so you've now finally got a piece of the rack. And I was like, yeah. And 2 years later, I couldn't sell it for $100,000. Because the Wall Street crash happened. Thousands of people left Manhattan. And you could not, I literally couldn't convince somebody to take it off my hands for free.
Yeah, no, I've been there myself.
They tried to auction it, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what it's worth now?
tell me a lot more.
$1.5 million.
Yeah.
But I had to leave,
I know,
and
no,
I had to lose the money.
Yeah, I mean, a major determinant of house prices is the credit market. It's how much credit there is. But and to be fair to the banks, actually, Mike, they say they can't offer new mortgages. Right, some banks are saying that. Yorkshire Building Society, Santander, and so on. But how do you price it, Mike? How do you price it? So the risk-free rate is the 10-year gilt,
right?
And that, a few months ago that was 1%. Now it's 4.5%. That's higher than Spain and Portugal.
Yeah,
right. It's headed north. How do they price it? How does a bank offer someone a fixed rate mortgage when you've got inflation at 10 or 11%?
I mean, again, I'm old enough to have been around the houses and all of this. I was there when they only had interest-only mortgages. I was there when they had an endowment mortgage.
Yeah.
Bought a house with one of those ones, right?
Both. Bad idea.
Got divorced, sold the house.
Yeah.
They said, the bank said to me, would you like to keep the endowment part going? I said, well, maybe. I said, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And they said, well, in 10 years, it will be worth less than the money you've put in. I went, I think in that case I might cancel.
No thanks.
And I mean, that was the only mortgage you could get in the days when, and this was about what I would say kind of mid to late 90s, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't get one of those anymore.
Yeah.
And you could only get an interest-only mortgage, which was only good if the price of the property kept going up. When it started to go down, people were getting hit at the end of the mortgage with £100,000 lump sum to pay to the bank.
Yeah.
So the bank have always been hopeless, in my view.
Well,
always.
I'd tend to agree with you, actually. The banks, strangely, that's the only job they should get right, but they're not terribly good on the record of allocating capital, are they? I mean, in the commercial sector, just as bad as the...
No. And I'm not taking any advice from banks who say it's too volatile to lend you money. Sorry, that's your job.
Yeah, but I don't know, honestly, Mike, how you price it right now. You have no idea what's happening. I mean, there's a lot of chaos.
Okay, we'll find a way. Don't say to first-time buyers, we've offered you a mortgage, we're now withdrawing the offer and you can't buy the house. That's not what they should be doing.
They'll price it high, and then people won't be able to take it up. It's a terrible bind we're in now. The MPC will put up rates. That will have an effect on the housing market. If it's really bad, I mean, some economists are predicting 20% if it goes up to 6%. If that happens, you're into a banking crisis again, and we're in real trouble.
Yeah.
And as I say, I'll return to it. We've talked about, we're not new to this. We did a green paper last year. The first line of the green paper said debt-based consumption is not prosperity. That was the first line.
And that's precisely where we've been. So we are, William. We've got lots more to talk about, including the Sussex Police, including Rupert Hook, and including the madness of fools who think that they can borrow money forever and never pay it back. Who could I be talking about? This is Talk TV. A little bit later on in the show, we're going to be talking about something to do with bowel cancer with Matt Dawson. Matt Dawson, of course, the international rugby player, MBE rugby legend. He's going to be joining us to talk to us about why it's important to make sure that you check yourself out. Before that, though, we've got some breaking news. William Clouston is here. I'm going to get you to explain this one, William, knowing what you do about the financial markets. The Bank of England has said it will launch a temporary UK government bond buying programme as an emergency move to stave off a material risk, their words, to UK financial stability. So I guess they think it's pretty serious.
I haven't read it. I mean, it looks like more QE. What they'll be trying to do is to get that 10-year Treasury yield down, which is 4.5% now, and a few months ago it was 1%. So they'll be trying to get that down. They're concerned about.
So the effect of the government buying back effectively their own bonds
puts the price down, puts the yield down,
right?
Yeah, the price up. So they'll get the yield down on that. All of this mortgage stuff is basically off that.
Yes.
I mean, it's So
I mean, the damage to the mortgage market is nothing to do with the currency levels, is it? It's more to do with the bonds.
The currency. I mean, some people. It's not a popular thing to say. Some people think we need a slightly cheaper pound to deal with the trade balance.
Right.
So I'd put that into a separate thing.
Well, I had this argument with somebody the other day because the nonsense about how prices are going to go up. They shouldn't. People can put their prices up and blame the currency fluctuations, but actually, as I well know, and you well know from knowing the markets, people hedge. Oil companies hedge currency. They know that if the currency fluctuates, they will be covered. So there's no reason for oil prices to go up just because they're traded in dollars.
And there are advantages to a slightly cheaper pound. I mean, if you're an exporter or you want us to deal with this chronic trade balance issue, then you want a cheaper pound. That's actually good in some respects. But what the bank are trying to do is to deal with this treasury yield going up, and it's more QE, more debt.
Well, I was going to say, where are they getting the money from to buy back the bonds?
Printing it.
I mean, It sounds like something Zimbabwe would do.
Well, it has a sort of Argentinian look to it, but I mean, it's
so
not...
in order to stabilise the now fluctuating and out of control bond market, they're going to invent more money to buy some bonds in the market with money they don't really
It's
have.
nothing new. I mean, they've been doing this. The Europeans do this. You know, the Americans have been doing it. They've been doing it ever since the GFC.
I mean, one of the things that's amazed me is that, you know, I was told the other day, because I didn't know, the euro has dipped below parity with the dollar.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a story here.
Yeah, virtually every currency has. I mean, the zloty has gone down, the Polish currency has gone down about 20%. They have very high inflation there. You won't hear about that. A lot of people, Mike, I've never... You know, I'm a Brexit supporter. I think we should control our own economy, and I want us to govern ourselves. A lot of the people, some of the people that are cropping up, having a pop at the government or Britain are just the enemies of Britain. I mean, some people, I dare say, some people...
some of them are here.
Yeah.
Some of them work in the media. They love a good scam.
Yeah, they love it, so they're stirring it. I'm just trying to look at it rationally. What's the stock of debt? If you have a debt-based economy and you don't produce enough, I mean, actually... The problem we have, Mike, is quite simple. Our households for about 20 or 30 years have not saved enough. They've spent too much, particularly on imports.
Yes.
Our industries haven't produced enough and haven't invested enough, and the government's never balanced its budget. This is basics.
You're seeing from my hymnship, because I've been saying this all week, you know, that you walk around the streets now, everybody's got the earbuds that cost 150 quid, you know, everybody's got an iPhone or something similar. People driving around in cars, the like of which they could never have afforded a few years ago because they're getting them all on tick. You know, people have got Xboxes, they've got PlayStations, every room has got a television in it. You know, I know it sounds
old-fashioned,
hokey and ridiculous to say it, but, you know, we had one TV when I grew up, and we had to sit around and watch it together if we wanted to.
But it's all very modern, this, Mike. This is my criticism of sort of, you know, free trade liberal right-wingers. You know, I'm arguing from a position on the left economically. And it's the indifference to what is made where and by whom. They don't care where it's made. Ship it in. And they don't care about the trade balance. But it's got to be paid for, Mike. You can't keep on borrowing that.
But this is the other thing that's confusing me about current Conservative leadership, where they've came out the other day and said, now we want to increase immigration. And you're going, sorry?
This is insane.
And what are you talking about?
Absolutely insane.
We thought that the whole reason for leaving the European Union was to control immigration, not to let it go out of control, as it currently is on the south shores of our country. But now you're going to say, oh, we need to bring more people in to lower the wages?
Utterly insane. Well, it has two effects, Mike, and people are... Again, to give us some credit, people on the left do understand this. Mass migration has two effects on our workers. It puts the price of the hourly wage down, obviously, because you're increasing the supply, and it disincentivizes training. Why train anyone? Their model, look at the NHS. They're training 7,500 doctors. They know that's not enough. We'll just ship them in. That's their attitude. Until we get out of this attitude, short-termism, unserious policy, we'll have continued problems. I do worry that we're heading for a sort of reckoning. Yes.
Let's talk about the Sussex Police. A big story today. Sussex Police massively backtracking on what I would have regarded as something pretty much almost criminal, when they effectively went after people on social media who were criticising them for calling this paedophile a she rather than a he. He committed the crimes when he was a he. He's only now a she because he says he is. There's nothing to suggest that he is a woman. It's ludicrous, isn't it? When did this happen? I've been asking this question this morning.
This is where you get to if you have runaway liberalism. I mean, liberalism, you say, well, I can have my own facts, I can have my own reality. Forget about empirical evidence. Forget about realities that you're.
What you see is not what you get.
No, it's what I determine it. So I can make my own facts up. So you've gone for this, and then you make it a hate crime for someone to stand up and say, "You're talking nonsense.
Yeah.
You're a man." We have a policy in the SDP. Our policy on biological sex-based rights is a good one. We had some very, very good people help us with that policy. Worth a read on our website. But basically, women's prisons, women's refuges. Are women's places, and that means biological women. Yeah. That's how it is. You saw the issue with Primark. A young girl went to Primark, I think it was in Cambridge. A biological man walks in. Women don't want that.
No.
You know, and some liberals
Nobody
and
wants
politicians...
it.
No, they don't. And so... But I would argue on the Sussex... on the police thing, it's about also honesty in public record, right? So, you know, again, a case a few years ago, someone was born male... And then they say, I want my birth certificate changed to a woman because I've decided that I'm a woman. And I think that went to court, and luckily, actually, I think the court backed sense.
Yeah.
You can't just have your own facts.
Well, because you were born a man, right?
Exactly.
You can change the birth certificate in your head,
Yeah.
but when you were born, you were a bloke.
Yeah.
Now, whatever you are now, that's what you were then,
Yeah.
and that's what that document represents.
And it's so demoralising for the public, Mike, to have a rapist rape someone, a biological man rape someone, and then it's recorded as a woman doing that.
Yes.
The public are looking at that and saying, come on, get a grip.
Right.
And then if you call it out, the police come after you. That's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Well, the statement that they've now pulled from Twitter, in which they said that they do not put any gender or assume any gender on a criminal, whatever the crime that has been committed.
Well, it can be relevant.
That doesn't make any sense at all to anyone with a brain.
It can be relevant, you know,
Well, of course.
in a rape case, you know. I mean, it's shocking.
It really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary. And finally, I suppose we must touch on the last minute what we've got. Rupert Hook, racism. The statement has been called racist by Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
David Lammy doesn't want to talk about it. There's a funny thing.
No, he'll avoid talking about that. The trouble is, the Labour Party, I mean, Starmer's doing quite a good job of rebranding himself as a sort of, you know, a patriot singing the national anthem and all the rest of it, and that's quite good PR. But in reality, underneath the hood of the Labour Party, it's full of these maniacs that hyper-racialise everything. They won't see anyone as a human being. I think what she said was disgraceful.
Yeah.
What did she say? He was superficially
black, i.e., you can't be black and successful, apparently.
No, apparently
But what
not.
she actually meant was you can't be black and Tory.
Yeah, and she said that what did she say? If he was on a radio programme and he was speaking, you wouldn't know he was black. Well, I tell you what, we can tell what a racist is.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the public can. And I had enough of
She
it.
should be chucked out of the party, shouldn't she?
She should
Forget
be.
suspension.
She should be. She's also, I mean, you know, a few years ago there were allegations of anti-Semitism, so there were problems. But this is the real Labour Party under the hood. I mean, you know, you've got to admire Starmer trying. It's his job to try and present a new Labour Party. But the real Labour Party is that one. And look at the Chris Cabba thing. You know, that case, if an event like that happens, people get on it and they start mobilising and racialising. I mean, before any inquiry has happened. Right. This is what they're like.
I know. Shocking. Great to see you, William. Thank you very much indeed. William Clouston there from the Social Democratic Party. Go and check out their website. Check out what they do, what they believe in. You might like some of it. This is Talk TV.